Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Eric Brummett here from Mythic Life, and today I want to share with you something kind of personal. Um, we're going through this journey of looking at our relationship with karma and how life has its cycles. And um, last month, Sarah in our Soul Guide introduced this concept of karma and really how to discover that story of karma and the purpose and the lessons attached to it and the fulfillment to it. And this month, we just finished Day of the Dead and Halloween, and we are exploring genetic karma and this relationship with family. And our dynamic in families, especially if you're a healer, it tends to be a lot of service to them. We tend to fall into this place of like our life is for our family, and oh my god, how do I be free of this? How do I declare my life? Things like that. Well, I did that. I left my hometown. I moved across the country. I went to New York. I started my practice. I had my family. I separated myself a lot, and after a period of time started to reconnect with my brother and mend and heal that relationship. And you know at my wedding with Sarah, our families came together, and my aunts and uncles from my mother's side all came but one, my uncle Jack. And my uncle Jack, earlier in my life, was the only one that showed up. My other aunts and uncles were never around. We barely saw them. I barely knew them. I barely knew my cousins. And, it was my mom's relationship with my Uncle Jack, who was one of my father's best friends. And when my father passed away, he was there. He did the best he could to show up for my brother and I. And then as his life continued to reveal itself and unwind, he he became a recluse. My Uncle Jack, crazy Uncle Jack. He would show up at our house on his Harley with leather gear and a mohawk and just like cackling and wow, he was crazy Uncle Jack. Um, but he was also a Vietnam vet. He saw combat. He had PTSD, and he retreated from people. He didn't like humans, and a lot of his relationships were like that. They were really fickle, and that became a worse and worse cycle. And he fell to his addictions. He ended up being a pretty miserable guy, and he didn't want to be around people, and so he was the only one that didn't show up at our wedding. And this past spring, he came down with cancer, and he had a he went through treatment. The cancer went away, and during that scare, he reached out and he was sharing how one of his biggest regrets was not being there at the wedding, and he really apologized. And my auntie Lane was at the wedding, and shortly after, she got sick and she passed away from cancer. And she lived out in Spokane, Washington. She was a devout Christian, and I had so much happening in my life at that time. I didn't choose to go out. I didn't choose to go out and see her. I didn't choose to go to the funeral, and there was a cycle of that. I didn't go and see my grandmother or my grandfather or go to their funerals. It was always just so hard. I have a business, I have kids. This idea of family obligations. Oh, the holidays. It's so hard, like in the end, you're not going to regret and miss the week of work that you missed. In the end, those moments that you spend with somebody are the significant moments, the apex moments. And I told myself after my aunt passed away that I'm not going to miss another funeral. I'm not going to miss an opportunity to say goodbye to somebody or be there to rejoice or be there for the moments, you know. So I really learned my lesson when my aunt passed. I did some belief work, I did some healing to let go of that regret. And my uncle's cancer came back. And it's really aggressive. There's no treatments. He's not wanting to pursue things. He's actually choosing a different path. And so the interesting thing is that he withdrawed from everybody. He withdrawed from his own daughter. He left his wife in the Bay Area and became a recluse out in nowhere land, Arizona. And now that he's on his deathbed, he's back in the Bay Area. He's staying with Kathy, his ex wife, who's embracing him. And he asked for one thing from Arizona, his father's rocking chair. He wants to be in that rocking chair, his father's rocking chair. And his daughter drove all the way to Arizona to get it and is back, and his daughter's there. The love of his life is there, Kathy, and I get to show up for him. So this is karma. This is cycles. You know, and I love my Uncle Jack. He taught me so many things. He gave me that spark of adventure, that finding laughter and comedy in the most intense moments. So, this one's for my Uncle Jack. And this is what we're going to be exploring tomorrow in our soul guide is karmic debt to our ancestors, family obligations, why it's so burdening, and what happens when we clear that so that we can actually embrace it. My mother would say and say and say to me, in the end, it's family that you can end up relying on. And for some families that's true, for some families that's not, but for mine it is. For mine, when things have gotten rough or when things have gotten beautiful, who is there is family. I have some very dear friends. I love them, and we don't have obligations to each other. It's a very unconditional love. Where family, we have some obligations. You show up, you be together, and you have consideration, and you prioritize it. And in the end, that's something that I love to embrace. And so, let's find that path together, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And if you're wanting to really work on these things with me, let's dive into this tomorrow. Our Soul Guide workshop is going to be really powerful. It's going to be something. So I'll see you all then.